Hello and welcome to this midweek edition of the PipeBomb Wrestling Podcast, the show that is for the fans, by the fans. I am your phenomenal host, Mr. Podcasting, Chris Belcher. You can follow me at Chris Belcher24 on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The show is at PBW Podcast on all those platforms as well, so make sure you give us a follow, interact with us. That's how we know that you are liking what we're doing. We want to talk about what you want to hear about, so make sure you give us some feedback on social media. We would greatly appreciate it. Also, get the word out about the PipeBomb Wrestling Podcast. The easiest way for us to get more listeners is for you, the devoted listeners, to share episodes. Get the word out about our show. We would greatly appreciate that. Once again, my name is Chris Belcher. Thanks for hanging out with us. Joining me, as always, is the young buck. Ladies and gentlemen, Andy York is in the house. Andy, as we sit right now, we are less than 10 days away from WrestleMania, less than 7 days away from being in Dallas.
Yeah,
man, hopefully I'll be sleeping in a week at this time and gearing up for our all-night drive. Man,
yeah,
we're here. We're getting there.
I'm dreading Thursday, to be honest. I'm dreading Thursday night, but I'm looking forward to Friday to Sunday night. And then Monday driving back home is going to be another pain. But I'm excited for it. I'm looking forward to it. This is, no secret, this is my first WrestleMania this year, and I am very excited to not just experience WrestleMania, but to experience pro wrestling also around WrestleMania weekend as well. That's going to be a lot of fun. So a lot of meet and greets, a lot of access stuff, a lot of show stuff that we're doing as well. And it's going to be a busy week, but it's going to be a fun week.
So next week, next Wednesday, mark your calendars. We are previewing WrestleMania in its entirety. Not only are we going to preview WrestleMania in its entirety, we're going to tell you exactly what we're going to be doing. We're going to give you a rough tentative schedule about the things that we're going to experience. The best we can give you, obviously, before actually experiencing it. So we're going to go through some of those meet and greets that we're going to do, and some of the awesome things that we're going to get to do. Some surprises coming your way. I got some other plans in the works that we're excited about. So next Wednesday, mark your calendars on bodyslam.net YouTube channel, Sports Wire Radio, and wherever you find your podcast. We're going to preview WrestleMania. And Andy, that is going to be the last time we hit record before we go to Dallas. So I'm really excited about that. Also, for those of you who have not been keeping up with our WrestleMania season episodes, we talked about The Undertaker and his WrestleMania streak. Happy birthday to the dead man today, by the way, if you're listening to this on the day that it drops, March 24th. That is the dead man's birthday. We talked about, Andy, what else talking about? The Hall of Fame. Talked about in or out, the Hall of Fame, which is a fun episode. Very timely because I think, Andy, I think you and I inducted Vader into the Hall of Fame. I think our episode is what launched that. I
think we should be part of the induction. Like, I think we should be take part in inducting him into the Hall of Fame, because
I agree.
That didn't happen until we recorded that episode. So
that is true. It's 100% the truth. And I thought you were going to say that we should be part of the committee who picks people to go in the Hall of Fame. And I would say the only caveat to that is if we can take people out before we put more people in.
Yeah. I think we would get fired from that job pretty quickly.
Probably would. So we've talked about that. Coming up next week, guys, a full week of episodes every single day from next Monday until the following Wednesday is going to be brand new episodes every single day. Andy, I think that is 10 episodes. And ladies and gentlemen, we've been working hard. They're pretty much, except the reviews of WrestleMania and the road trip stories that we're going to record when we go. All those other episodes are in the can, man. And it's awesome. We have a lot of great shows coming up. We're counting down the best WrestleMania matches of all time. We're fantasy booking WrestleMania. Our buddy Jared Justice, my brother from another mother, is coming back next week. He is going to join us for a couple episodes. It's going to be awesome, guys. You don't want to miss. Make sure you tune in every day next week for brand new content. With that being said, we're going to talk a lot about WrestleMania over the next week or so. We have been talking about it, but we got to give AEW their just due as well. So let's make a pit stop there first. Dynamite was last night. What a Dynamite it was, man. A lot of great stuff. We saw the next the next sort of, not incarnation, but the next series or next level of the Jericho Appreciation Society. We're starting to see some more stuff with them. We saw a crazy 8-man tag that went all over the building. We saw CM Punk in really an unannounced match up until day of. It wasn't advertised until day of, and it was a banger. Oh my gosh. And just some incredible action. What really stood out to you on Dynamite last night?
So normally I'm the positive AEW person and of the podcast most of the time.
Yes.
And to me, this episode was a tale of 2 hours for AEW. I think the first hour of AEW was some of the best stuff that we had seen weekly.
Yes.
Punk versus Dax was an absolutely amazing match to go back and watch. And I love the little subtle. He hasn't said anything about Adam Hangman Page yet, but he has made subtle hints as he is his next target is Page, going for the title with doing the title signal, doing the noose around his neck, and kind of acting like he's a hangman, like all of that stuff.
Yep.
I love the little stuff that Punk puts into his work and things like that. The 8-man tag match was the best, like not the best, but it was one of the best AEW train wreck matches, which we've talked about before.
Yep.
It's a train wreck, and you know it's going to be a train wreck, and it's amazing every single time. And this was no different. Jeff Hardy, we gave him some criticism last week, and I kind of take back some of that criticism watching him do the swanton off the side of the wall through the two tables with, as you pointed out, action figures under the table.
Yes.
So double whammy there. And then, it kind of just fell off a little bit. Second hour, this whole Sammy Guevara Scorpio Sky thing is a little too much, I think. I think they could have a very good heel duo with Sammy and Ty Conti if they really turned them heel. I think that would be great because fans are starting to turn a little sour on both of them because they're not the brightest people on social media, I think is the nice way to say that.
Yeah.
And then, man, the Thunder Rosa segment really made me mad. Not that Nyla Rose is the next opponent, because I think that's, if you're going to go that route, then that's fine. But for that to be the first segment as your AEW new women's champion, and I think that's a little bit of a disservice. I don't think Britt would have got the same response right after winning the title.
Right.
No celebration, no in-ring promo, nothing. And so, that part was a little frustrating. And I think that part is, I don't think AEW knows what to do a lot right now outside of Thunder Rosa and Britt Baker in the women's division.
Yep.
And Jade Cargill. I think they've done a really good job of Jade Cargill here recently. I think she has really started to come into her own more so this in the last couple of months than when she kind of first started. And so, I think it was a tale of 2 hours. I really do. I think the first hour was great. I think the second hour really fell off for me, and could have been a lot better.
Excellent point there with Thunder Rosa and with Britt Baker. Like we've talked about it, time and time again. Who's going to be the one to dethrone Britt Baker? Who's going to be the one to dethrone Britt Baker? And the unanimous choice was that it was going to be Thunder Rosa. But then the question that you have to ask yourself, and the question that all wrestling bookers and creative minds have to ask themselves, okay, then what?
Yeah.
And right now AEW is trying to answer the then what.
Yeah.
And trying to bring in Nyla Rose and trying to, help get Thunder Rosa over as a bigger deal. Okay, well, Nyla Rose is playing the Randy Orton role. I get that. I understand that. But is that really the right answer?
I think it could work. I really do. I think it could work, but I think you have to introduce it in a better way than that, and you have to make Thunder Rosa feel like a bigger deal than she did last night. And I think that's part of it is just doing an on-stage interview with Tony Schiavone is not enough to make Thunder Rosa feel like a big deal as the women's champion. She needs to be in the ring doing her in-ring promo, kind of like Britt Baker did, kind of like all the champions before did. And I think that part is really where they fell off with her last night and not giving her that chance to be the face of the division.
Right. And I agree with that too. And I think one of the things that hinders them from doing that is they haven't done a good job of getting Nyla Rose over. And to that point of where Thunder Rosa beating her means something, because guess what? Right now it doesn't.
No.
If Nyla Rose had been like the first ever women's champion or something, or she was this big dominant heel that she's supposed to be, then it might mean something, but it doesn't. So AEW's got the work cut out for them. I mean, it doesn't matter who it was. Let's be honest. Even if it was Ruby Soho, doesn't matter who's following Britt Baker. They got their work cut out for them to try to, duplicate what they just did. You mentioned Jeff Hardy. We did give him some crap last week. And this week was much better because he was in his element. He was able to jump off things immediately. I don't know if you know this story or not. But immediately when Jeff Hardy starts climbing that ladder, the first thing I think of is Bruce Pritchard, the infamous Bruce Pritchard and Michael Hayes bit, where we get the impression of Michael Hayes where he says, hey, Jeff, you think you can climb up on that there ledge and out there at the merch stand, and give me a big swan tom flippity flop loop de loop like you think you can do that? Well, Michael, I guess so. Guess I'm going to do it. It's immediately what I thought of. So I'm literally, as he's climbing up after he jumps, like I'm dying laughing to myself. But it was a train wreck, and it was what it needed to be. The sad part of that was that was one of the first times that Sting hasn't landed something that in AEW in his matches. They went for whatever Private Party's finish is, and Sting was supposed to land on his feet and catch one of them in the Scorpion Death Drop, and Sting fell, or I don't know exactly how. Maybe it was the momentum carrying. I'm not exactly sure, but it was one of the first things that Sting didn't land in. Well, you could tell Sting wasn't happy about it.
No, he wasn't happy about it, but he's like, he's 60 something years old. Like, dude, you're fine. I will give you great. If that was like Sammy Guevara that didn't land it and fell, that's one thing. But like for you to even attempt it and almost do it, like, I know that you're not, and I know he's not the kind of guy that like would allow that to be the motivation, because he wants to do everything perfect. And I get that, and I understand that, and it's gotten him to where he's at today, and there's no doubt about that. But I was like, even when it happened, even when he fell, I was like, that's still pretty cool. That's still pretty cool for Sting to even do that. So, I understand his frustration, but as a fan, I was like, props. That was cool. I loved it.
Absolutely. And then one thing that neither of us have mentioned, and I can't believe we have gone so far into this episode and not mentioned, is daggum Adam Cole versus Jay Lethal.
I know.
Holy cow, man.
Yeah.
Holy cow. What a match. That was insane. It was so good.
It reminded me of their Ring of Honor run. Which I don't know if you know a whole lot about their run of Ring of Honor.
I have like bits and pieces of context.
So that's where Adam Cole joined the Bullet Club.
Okay.
It was a match. It was Jay Lethal versus Colt Cabana for the Ring of Honor title at Worlds Collide. I think there's a pay-per-view. Something like that. And the lights go out. Young Bucks pop up in the ring. They both have a Bullet Club t-shirt. And then the lights go off again. Lights come back up. Adam Cole's in the ring with the Bullet Club t-shirt. And then they just beat the crap out of everybody. Announcers, cameramen, all of it. They kind of go like that. And then they go through their feud for the Ring of Honor title. And it's one of my favorite Ring of Honor feuds. And so when I saw this match announced, I think they announced it a couple days ago or something like that. I knew this was the match that I needed to just sit down and watch and appreciate. And it just brought back all the Ring of Honor feels. I love Jay Lethal. I think Jay Lethal deserves to be AEW champion at some point. I really do. I think Adam Cole's going to be AEW champion at some point. I would love to see them revisit this feud again to bring back all of that stuff, because they work so well together. It's hard to find somebody that Jay Lethal and Adam Cole don't work well with. And so when you put them together, it's magic every time.
Well, and I think this is one of the reasons I love you being on this podcast, is because you are able to provide Ring of Honor context. And the reason I say that is because AEW just bought Ring of Honor. So it's cool that they are bringing up these nuggets seemingly every week about Ring of Honor and trying to rope that fan base into what they're doing. And for you to provide that context is great for this show. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for having that knowledge. And again, kudos to AEW for doing that. That's really cool.
Yeah, that's one of the things I love about AEW. And I think we talked about this with Punk's entrance at Revolution when he came out to his old Ring of Honor theme. Mm-hmm. It's nice to have a promotion that recognizes other promotions' histories and plays into it. And so, like, not that I feel like validated for watching Ring of Honor all those years, but it feels like I'm being appreciated as a Ring of Honor fan, seeing that being displayed, on AEW TV in these big time moments, in these big time matches. And it feels like it's even on a bigger scale now because AEW is much more known than Ring of Honor has ever really been, kind of.
Right.
And so to see all of that is really, really cool to finally get to see a lot of this stuff that we've loved for years to kind of come to the screen. So if I ever get a CM Punk versus Samoa Joe rematch in AEW, I can die happy because that'd be awesome.
That's exactly right. All right. So AEW last night, a tale of 2 hours. I completely agree. Second hour, not so much. First hour was a banger for sure. But Andy, this is going to be the last time that we really dive into AEW for at least a week because WrestleMania is next week. We're going to preview WrestleMania. We're not, unless the internet breaks, which is something AEW has been known to do a time or two.
Yeah.
Unless the internet breaks, we're really not going to dive much into AEW at all next week. So the next time we'll revisit that will be after WrestleMania. So make sure that we'll be watching. Don't worry. We'll be keeping tabs and those kind of things. But, that's where we're at. We're in WWE season. So let's transition over, man. Let's look at some stuff from WWE this week. Man, we got to start with SmackDown, and we got to start with the way the SmackDown kicked off. Brock Lesnar driving a dang forklift and then ripping doors off of trucks. Bro, come on.
Well, what I love the most about this segment is not the fact that he did that with the forklift and the car. It's the fact that they all saw him driving towards them and they still got in the car.
Yes.
It's like, just walk the other way. Just run away the other way. Paul Heyman screaming the entire time, I think, really sold it for me. I think during all of this, I think this is the best version of Roman. This is the best version of Brock. This is the best version of Paul Heyman. All three of them are doing amazing stuff right now. The in-ring promo with Roman, and then you can see, like, the happiness on Paul's face when he realizes Brock's not going to be there. And then he's trying to get Roman's attention to tell him that he's landed. And like, all of it was just amazing. Absolutely amazing stuff. They're playing into the feud very well.
Yes.
I'm still not that sold on the main event yet. I'm still not sold completely on Brock versus Roman. I just feel like it's WrestleMania and we've seen this before. I know they're different characters now on different roads and stuff. It just feels like it's the same thing that we've kind of seen before. I will say that the feud or the build up to this match has been much better than anything else they've done going into a WrestleMania match between Brock and Roman.
Well, yeah, you hit the nail on the head right there, man, because the way they've been building this feud and the way they've been billing, use the right word there, billing the match as the greatest WrestleMania main event of all time.
Yeah.
It feels different than it ever has. Yeah. That's why they're able to use that. And while we might look at it and say, well, that's certainly not true. But they're billing it differently. They're making it so that it is important. Well, perfect example, man. You look back during the pandemic, the greatest wrestling match ever was between Edge and Randy Orton. That's what it was billed as. Okay. It certainly was not. Edge knew that it was not. Randy Orton knew that it was not. And they've both been public in saying, we weren't trying to make it that way. We were just trying to tell a story and incorporate those things and give people that kind of feel. And they succeeded in doing that. So Brock and Roman, while this is certainly not going to be the greatest WrestleMania main event ever, they're making it feel that way. And I think the incorporation of some family member of Roman Reigns might help.
Yeah. I think it's smart and it's not smart at the same time, because we've kind of seen this before, this trend of WWE bills these matches as something like, this is the greatest WrestleMania main event of all time. Edge and Randy was the greatest wrestling match of all time. Right. AJ and Shinsuke was a dream match at WrestleMania that we've never got to see before. And when you kind of build these things as certain things, the expectation for them goes up even more.
Right.
And at some point, the expectation becomes more than the wrestlers can conceive to, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
And so I think that maybe part of the issue going into this is they're billing it as the greatest WrestleMania main event of all time. And I know that it's not going to be, not
Right.
because they're not capable of it. I just know that from their track record, they haven't had the only good Roman Brock match was because Seth got involved in it.
Right.
And that to me does not make the greatest recipe for the greatest main event of all time. So I think it's going to be a fine match. I think the match itself is going to be whatever. I agree though. I think nobody's going to remember the match. People are going to remember The Rock showing up, which also makes me a little nervous because Brock is a business guy. And if you've heard Seth Rollins tell the story before about his match with Brock at, was it Battleground? 2015 when Taker showed back up right
Yes.
after or during the match.
Mm-hmm.
Seth had all these ideas to do something really cool, and Brock was like, "Why? Nobody's going to remember that. They're going to remember Taker showing up at the end. So let's just do a standard match and then get to the finish." And I feel like that might be, if Rock does show up, that might be the case this year of standard match. Rock shows up at the finish.
Well, I think that's certainly possible. I think there's a very good possibility of that. I think that Brock has, I don't want to speculate what kind of relationship that Brock and Seth have, but
Yeah.
Brock has been very vocal recently about how much respect he has for Roman Reigns.
Yeah.
And how much he thinks he is the guy and that he is a star. So that might play into them not doing just a standard match, especially because the roles are reversed and Brock's a babyface this time around. But to your point, I can 100% see that.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But then again, Battleground versus WrestleMania. You
Yeah.
know, I don't know.
But I also remember, and I think they're two different things. But I also remember Brock at WrestleMania. I don't think he not necessarily cares as much as other people do, but like his match with Seth was awesome, and it was his idea to make it the first match out of the gate.
Yep.
To do this big thing, that was great. But for every Seth match at Mania, there's a Dean Ambrose match at Mania that he does not care about at all.
Right.
And not necessarily that I don't think he cares about it. I just think that if the big thing they're going to remember at the end is someone else coming out to confront Roman, then I don't think he really cares necessarily about what goes on in the match itself.
Right.
And I hope I'm wrong because I think Brock and Roman can put on a really good match in the right context. It's just getting to that context and having that match is something that I'm not convinced that they're going to get that we're going to get at WrestleMania.
Only time will tell, but I do know what we're going to see at WrestleMania is a lot of craziness because things are ramping up. Things are being announced. Matches are getting confirmed. And one of the things that I was not excited about at all about WrestleMania, I'm just going to be honest, wasn't excited at all. But now I have a little bit of vested interest is Sami Zayn versus Johnny Knoxville. And the reason is because the stipulation that was announced this past week was not no holds barred. It was not I quit. It was not a street fight.
Yeah.
It was announced that anything goes. Sami Zayn is crazy. Johnny Knoxville is on another level of crazy.
Yeah.
So to imagine what we're going to get in an anything goes match, I'm in. I want to see it.
I think this is going to be, we talked about it earlier with AEW. I think this is going to be WrestleMania's train wreck match.
Yes.
And it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think it's going to be the most overbooked match on the card. Because I don't know who's going to appear. Like I think anybody could show up in this match. I think this could be where we see Mick Foley show up. I think this could be where we see like a Shawn Michaels show up or somebody like that shows up in this match to help take out Sami Zayn. I don't know why I love it so much. I love the whole storyline of Johnny Knoxville giving out Sami Zayn's phone number and like all of the people FaceTiming and texting and calling him and like just the updates that he's giving. All of it. I love what they're doing with it. And so I don't think it's going to be a 5-star match. I don't think it's going to be a match we remember for it being a good wrestling match. I just think it's going to be insane. And I'm excited to see what Johnny Knoxville jumps off of. Is
Yes.
where I'm at now, and I'm excited to see what happens with that.
Here's what I don't want to happen, and this thought, just as you're talking about, this thought entered my mind. What scares me is that they might fight backstage, and then we get something pre-recorded that is just so crazy that they have to pre-record it to make sure that it goes right.
Yeah.
That's which would be fine.
Right.
To me, that would be fine if we were sitting at home and watching it.
Yeah.
Not in the building.
I agree. And I think we may get a mix of both. I think we're going to
Sure.
get something crazy backstage that may be recorded that leads to something that happens that's not recorded that's going to be maybe not as crazy, but still pretty like, I wouldn't do that. I would not jump off of that. I would not go through a flaming table with thumbtacks attached to it, which I'm sure has been discussed with Johnny Knoxville. And I'm excited to see. I think it's going to be a train wreck. I think it's going to be fun.
Yep.
I think this might be the one celebrity match other than Bad Bunny and Pat McAfee that would be like, okay, I enjoyed that. That was fun.
Right.
That is exactly what I wanted it to be.
You know what else I'm excited for? That's going to be fun that I cannot wait to see in person. And this is just off the wall. This has no big time WrestleMania implications. I cannot wait to see the entrance of Rick Boogs and Shinsuke Nakamura.
Oh my gosh, I know.
I cannot wait, man. Like, just seeing them on SmackDown this past week, like, I'm so happy that they are actually getting a featured match at WrestleMania when they essentially have no business in it. But I can't wait.
I'm excited for it too. I think Rick Boogs is one of my favorite guys on SmackDown. Just he's so charismatic and like he's so fun to watch. And he makes Shinsuke fun to watch again, which, not Shinsuke's fault. I just don't think WWE knew what to do with Shinsuke. And then putting these two that should not work together has worked perfectly, which seems to be a theme with their tag teams right now of should not work. I mean, Chad Gable and Otis should not work together. They do. Randy Orton and Riddle definitely should not work together. And it's one of my favorite things on Raw. And so I love these random tag teams that they put together. I think the match itself is going to be fun. I think it's going to be a really good match because when you've got guys like Shinsuke and the Usos in the match, it's going to be hard not to be fun. But the entrance itself is going to be something to behold, and I'm looking forward to it.
It definitely is. Let me tell you something else I'm actually looking forward to, and this, you might scrutinize me for this point. All of our listeners might. Hey, send your hate tweets to @ChrisBelcher24 because here's a little bit of an interesting opinion, if you will. I was watching SmackDown on Friday, and we find out at the end of this segment that the women's tag team match is now going to be a fatal four-way. They're adding Shayna Baszler and Natalya to Sasha Banks and Naomi, to Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan, and to Carmella and Zelina for the women's tag team title. We have been openly critical on this show about the women's tag team championships numerous times. Okay. But the way that I'm looking at this, normally women's tag team matches are not great.
Yeah.
And that has to do with the people that are in it. We have 8 really good women's wrestlers in this match.
Yeah.
And if what we're going to see at WrestleMania is any indication by what we saw this past Friday, that tag match between Sasha, Naomi, and Rhea and Liv, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Like, this was going to be a bathroom break match, but I think I might have to see this. Like, it was really good.
Yeah, I'm still on the fence about it because I don't know. I just feel like they don't do the only good WrestleMania women's tag match for the tag titles I can remember happened. I think at the first WrestleMania they were introduced, which was 35.
Yep.
Where the Iconics won it, I believe. Yep. And that match was really good. Like I enjoyed that match for the most part. This one, I don't know. I'm not invested in the women's tag division at all.
Sure.
And I hate seeing Sasha and Naomi and Rhea and Liv and Shayna Baszler in this division right now because I think all 5 of them should be in a women's title match at WrestleMania because I think they deserve to be up there. But I think it's going to be fun. I really do. I think if they let the right people shine, like Sasha, Naomi, Rhea, and Liv, that match on SmackDown should not have been as good as it was, and it was the best match on SmackDown. Like it was by far the best match on SmackDown. It's been the best. It was probably the best match on SmackDown, probably in the whole month of March. Like SmackDown hasn't done a whole lot match wise, recently until that. Like that match was really good, and so if they give them enough time to shine, then that's great. The only thing I'm concerned with, and I haven't seen the show on YouTube, and I don't know if I ever will. I know you told me to watch it, but I'm not. I don't know if I ever will because I'm not invested in it. I'm just nervous of what they're going to do with Carmella and Corey at WrestleMania. And this whole thing. I hope nothing too crazy happens. I just kind of hope that maybe they save that for the Raw after Mania. But I don't know. I'm just not invested or sold on it yet.
So this women's tag match, wait a minute. When is it happening? Is it on Sunday or Saturday? Looks like it's on Sunday. Okay. So
that'd be the only women's match on Sunday. Yeah.
So Monday night on Raw, live sex celebration, Corey and Carmella. No, like
that's what I was worried about.
In all seriousness, man, in all seriousness, you need to watch the show, because in listening to interviews with Corey and Carmella, like the previews that you see of them being very risque and all that kind of stuff, those are seriously like the only big risque parts in the whole show. Like they picked those out.
Yeah.
And Corey even said this. They picked those out to advertise the show. The rest of the show, not like that at all. So it's a really good show, but I'm a mark, so it's what it is. But no, I don't think it's going to be 5 stars by any means. Talking about the match, I don't think it's going to be 5 stars, but I think it's going to be good. You know, I think it's going to be better than it should be. Let's put it that way. I think I attribute it to those 5 that you talked about. Listen, Carmella, Zelina, and Natalya, not bad either, you know? So putting those 8 in the ring, I think it's going to be really good. One more thing from SmackDown before we transition over to Monday Night Raw is the Los Lotharios kiss cam. I want to bring this up because they always use indie wrestlers as plants for this. I don't know if any of y'all that are listening to this know that or not, but they use indie wrestlers as a plant.
Yeah.
The one from either last week or 2 weeks ago was on AEW and WWE the same week. So, but anyway, this week, Andy, I don't know if you know this or not, but the plant this week was a young lady named Caitlin Alexis who wrestles in CCW, and I have called several of her matches. As soon as she came on screen, I was like, I know her. That's funny. I know who that is. So she was the plant this week.
That's awesome. That's
so
awesome.
Funny. All right. If you're just now checking us out, welcome to the PipeBomb Wrestling Podcast. This is a show that is for the fans, by the fans. I am your phenomenal host, Mr. Podcasting, Chris Belcher. Thank you for hanging out with us. Whether this is your first time or you've been with us since the beginning, couldn't do this show without our listeners, because otherwise we'd be talking to ourselves. So thank you so much for hanging out with us. Andy York, the Young Buck, is with me, and we've talked a little bit about AEW. We're talking about WWE. And the last point I want to hit from SmackDown that really kind of carries over into Monday Night Raw before we talk about Raw is the legend, the superstar that is Pat McAfee. Oh my gosh. So Pat McAfee comes out on SmackDown and is forced to cut a promo after he goes to Mr. McMahon's office and is told he needs to apologize for what he did to Austin Theory. That bros promo on SmackDown, dude is a star, man.
He is.
Dude's a star.
Yeah.
Like, you honestly, he's so gifted. He's got a radio show, in case you guys don't know. It's a fantastic show. He used to be a punter in the NFL. But he talked about in that promo his dream of being a wrestler.
Yeah.
Like it almost, his promo, the stuff he's been doing lately, makes me wish that he had never been a punter and never been a radio host, that he had been a full-time wrestler. He's that good, man.
I don't know, man. I love the promo that he did. Because, and I know he took a lot of inspiration from guys like The Rock and Stone Cold in his promo, because if you've never seen his if you've never seen his YouTube show, he does the same thing. Like, I don't know, they do more what chants on the show than they do on Monday Night Raw and SmackDown combined. They do it all the time. And people that aren't wrestling fans that are guests on the show are like, "What are you guys doing?" Like, I don't understand what is happening. But like, he is the most charismatic guy that I've seen on wrestling, like, in wrestling, in a long time. He's like the two. I'm gonna be completely honest. The two most charismatic guys in WWE right now, to me, is Pat McAfee and LA Knight in NXT. LA Knight is the most charismatic guy that I have seen in a long time. I love LA Knight so much because of that. And so the promo he cut, I love when he had to apologize. He apologized and then went on his rant of like how he did it, because one of the things, and it kind of brought back, they're not on the same level yet. They might be someday, but they're not on the same level yet. Of a couple years ago, I think it was the build to WrestleMania 35. They made Becky come out and apologize.
Yes.
For whatever, and she apologized. Like, she actually apologized. And to me, if you're trying to, like, Stone Cold Steve Austin would never apologize, or if he did apologize, he did it the way Pat McAfee just did, and then hit somebody with a stunner and walked away. He wouldn't have like apologized to apologize and then not done anything. So I love that, like, Pat apologized without actually apologizing to Austin Theory. I'm looking forward to this match. I think Austin Theory can carry Pat McAfee to a good match. I think it's going to be fun. I think watching Pat come out on Raw, which I'm sure we'll talk about here in a little bit as well.
No, go for it. Yeah, right there. Go for
it. Made it even more interesting because he was supposed to be doing commentary, but he wouldn't stay at the commentary table to save his life. He got in he hit the ring. He got out when Austin Theory got hit in the stomach or whatever, and walked over and like act like he was holding his stomach, and all of that stuff is just so much fun. So I love Pat McAfee. I hope he does more stuff. Maybe not on a full-time schedule, but I hope we get to see him again sometime soon.
Well, what's so cool about Pat McAfee, man, and you and I have said this before, but for those of you who are listening and you don't have real context of Pat McAfee outside of WWE, this is Pat McAfee. Like, all of this is him. This is his true self. And I don't even, you talk about the wrestling adage where it's yourself turned up to 10. Pat McAfee is always turned up to 10, man. Like, there's no turning him up. This is him, and it's great.
He made punting cool.
Yes.
Because he would punt, drop it at the 1, and then do the Vince McMahon walk off the field. Or he would do like the telescope to like point it down, or the sword that like Trevor Bauer does now. Like, he made punting cool.
Yep.
And he has transformed that from punting to doing, like, he called a couple of college football games on Thursday night that I would not watch. The only reason why I tuned in to watch was because of Pat McAfee.
Exactly.
And he's done that to commentary now on SmackDown. This is the best SmackDown. This is the best WWE commentary team in years, between Pat McAfee and Michael Cole. Like, the duo.
Let's not forget. I like Cole and Graves. Pretty good.
Cole and Graves were great by themselves, but I think Pat McAfee brings out something different in Michael Cole.
Sure he does.
And I love Corey Graves. Corey Graves is one of my favorite commentators of all time. I just feel like Corey Graves always gets stuck with Byron Saxton, and my feelings with Byron Saxton as a commentator. Right. And so I think the duo of Pat McAfee and Corey and Michael Cole works better for everybody than Corey Graves and Michael Cole did by themselves.
I agree, because I think Corey can be put in any scenario, wrestling wise, and thrive.
Yep.
Pat McAfee needs somebody almost as, what's the word I'm looking for? As straight-laced as Michael Cole to really like fluff him up a little bit, or, ruffle his feathers, or what have you. So Pat works well when he can relate to somebody that's the total opposite of him. So and I think that's why it works.
And I think the trial run, honestly, was the very first SmackDown with no fans, when it was Triple H and Michael Cole. That was the most fun I had seen on SmackDown in years because of Triple H.
Can I just say that if, not to go far on a tangent, but you brought it up, if Triple H really is done in the ring, like if his health is not going to allow him to be in the ring, fantastic. Okay, go out of the ring, keep yourself safe, do your thing.
Absolutely.
Can you please get on a commentary team? Can we have Triple H as a full-time commentator?
Could you imagine the commentary team of Michael Cole, Pat McAfee, and Triple H?
I mean, there would be none better.
There's no point in watching the wrestling, though. Just have a camera on them. They need to do like a social media live thing where they have a camera at the commentary table the entire time and just show all three of them because it would be so much fun. And the thing that makes Pat so much fun, and we talked about this before, is he's not a commentator first. He's a wrestling fan first.
Yes, he is.
And so he's not a heel. He's not a face. Whoever he loves, he talks about. Roman Reigns and the Bloodline coming out is awesome because he goes crazy for him. Nakamura and Boogs is awesome because he goes crazy for them. Hearing him talk about Baron Corbin and Sami Zayn is so much fun because he's a wrestling fan. So heel face, it doesn't matter. If he loves him, he's gonna cheer for him and be for him, and I love it.
I hope our fanboyism of Pat McAfee is rubbing off on everybody because if y'all can't tell, we are really excited about Pat McAfee.
We're Titans fans. So we hated Pat McAfee when he played for the Colts because, we hated everybody for the Colts.
Amen.
We hate everybody for the Colts. I almost want to buy a Pat McAfee jersey just to wear it to WrestleMania just for him. Like that. That's how big of a Pat McAfee mark I am.
I love it. I love it. It's great. And why they haven't come out with a Pat McAfee shirt yet on WWE Shop, I will never know.
I know.
We need one of those. If y'all are listening, see, y'all listened to us when we talked about Vader and the Hall of Fame.
Or now when I bring up Goldberg, which please don't listen to me ever again.
Okay, right. So we're speaking it into existence now. We need a Pat McAfee shirt.
WrestleMania,
Yes, Andy and I will be the first two in line to get it. Don't worry. Okay, you will sell at least two of them. All right, promise.
Yeah.
Let's move on to some other stuff on Monday Night Raw. Man, oh my gosh. This is why I love WrestleMania season. Kevin Owens kicking off Monday Night Raw dressed like Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Oh my gosh.
What is better than that? What is better?
So, full disclosure, I was making dinner as it started. I was sitting down to eat dinner, actually, as Raw started. And I heard the glass break, and it did not register for a second. And I was like, oh, Stone Cold. And like I looked at the screen, and it took so long for him to come out. I was like, this is going to be Kevin Owens coming out and getting a great reaction. And then he comes out, the bald cap and all, which Kevin Owens in a bald cap is not something I knew, like something I didn't. Seeing Kevin Owens in the bald cap is not something I knew I needed to see until now. Like seeing that was awesome.
Yes.
Him in the ring, cutting the promo. The second time the glass broke, I told you this, I think, when we recorded last week. I think I told you, or a couple days ago.
Yep.
Katie was leaving. My wife, Katie, was leaving to actually go have dinner with your wife, my sister, and another friend.
Yep.
And a couple other friends. And she was literally opening the door to walk outside when the glass broke the second time. And she made one step, turned, and ran back in to see if it was actually Stone Cold again. And they made me, like, I bet on it so hard. I was like, Stone Cold's here. This is going to be awesome. He Shawn Michaeled us, and it was awesome. It was amazing. I loved it.
It was so good. Man, my favorite part of the whole thing was, I'm like you, when they showed the crowd too long, the very first time, I knew it wasn't Austin.
Yeah.
I knew it.
Yeah.
But what was so cool, man, is hearing the pop, seeing the reaction. Everybody's getting their phones out. Everybody's throwing their arms up. And they're getting excited. And then you hear the crowd. It goes up, and then it takes a minute for him to come out, so it kind of dies down a little bit.
Yep.
And then when Owens appears, it starts to ramp back up again until section by section they start realizing it's not actually
Stone
Austin.
Cold.
And then it goes all the way down. Like the roller coaster of that is why we love wrestling so much. Like that got all of us.
And like I'll give Kevin Owens props. The second time, the reason why I thought it was Austin so much is he sold it.
Yes, he did.
So well.
Yes, he did.
He sold it so well. And I believe that it was actually Stone Cold. The last time I remember, because I know Shawn Michaels did it
with the Undertaker
in 2000. No, he did it with. Well, did he do it with Taker?
He did it with Taker in the feud leading up to WrestleMania 25, and he did it with the Undertaker in their 97-98 feud. The 97-98 feud is the best one because if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong, but I think Michaels came down from the ceiling dressed like Taker in all black.
Oh my.
And then took it all off.
Yeah.
I think is how that happened.
Well, but he also did it with Brett in Canada.
Yes, he did it with Brett. You're right.
When that happened. And I also think it might have been 2000 2009, 2010. It was whenever Punk got his head shaved by Big Show, and he was wearing the mask and everything. They did the glass shatter then.
Yes.
And he sold it perfectly. Like, he sold it just as well. So, like, I don't know what it is. Anytime that a crowd or somebody wants to get heat with a crowd, selling that Stone Cold is going to be there does it every single time.
Or Miz did it with The Rock leading up to WrestleMania 27.
Dresses The Rock coming in. Like, some guys just get it. And Kevin Owens, The Miz, Punk, Shawn Michaels, all of them, they get it of, like, making people think that their fan favorite is there and then taking it away from them.
Yep.
Is such a great way to get heat.
And this is why Kevin Owens is the perfect guy to do this with
Absolutely.
Austin at WrestleMania. Absolutely. He's perfect. Here's what I want to happen. I was texting a couple people this. I don't remember if I texted you this or not. This is what I want to happen at WrestleMania. Okay, you ready? I want Kevin Owens to come out, okay, and start running his mouth. Austin's too chicken to show up, yada, yada, yada. The glass breaks. Then I want Rollins to come out dressed as Austin. So that we get more heat. And then you get both of them on Austin. And then I want the glass to shatter and Austin to come out in a monster truck or something like that. Even better, maybe he comes out on his four-wheeler and he chases Rollins around the ring on his four-wheeler.
Please.
Like, if there's anybody that could sell this as good as Owens, it would be Rollins. So if you could get them both involved, man, just like sign me up. That would just be amazing if they did something like that.
Honestly, like, and I don't know if he would. I don't know what to expect with this Kevin Owens segment because I don't think it's just going to be a stunner go home thing. I think there's going to be some extra things to it.
Yep.
I would love it if Stone Cold took a stunner from Kevin Owens.
Oh, he will. I really think he will.
No, sold it.
Oh,
takes the stunner and then just sits back up and is like, "That's not a stunner." Wham! Right. Here's the stunner. Like, I would love because I need. What can't happen is Kevin Owens to look bad coming out of this.
Correct.
Because that can happen from time to time. The most obvious example is with the Wyatt family and The Rock at WrestleMania 32 in Dallas. Yes. When they had that impromptu match, which the pop was cool, of like Rock taking off his pants and having his trunks on underneath him. Like, all of that was cool. Yep. But what happened after made the Wyatt family look really bad.
Yep.
And so we can't really afford to do that with someone like Kevin Owens. Because Kevin Owens is one of those guys that should be one of your top guys. And so I think it's fine for him to take the loss at the end of the day because obviously he's not going to pin Stone Cold or beat up Stone Cold the whole time or whatever. But I think he needs to be made like a big deal out of this. And I think both guys need to come out looking strong because Stone Cold doesn't need to look weak coming out of this. Kevin Owens doesn't need to look weak coming out of this. It just needs to be a fun segment that both guys can kind of propel off of afterwards as well.
Well, I think what'll happen is we'll talk for a bit. You know, there will be a talking element to both of them in the ring. They will have banter back and forth.
Yeah.
Owens will get some heat on him. He'll hit a stunner.
Will say what?
Yes. The whole crowd will say what. It'll be great. Austin will get hit with a stunner. KO will hit him with a stunner. And then Austin will pop back up. He'll beat up Kevin Owens. We'll do a beer bash to end the first night of WrestleMania.
Yeah.
Like, that's in one way or the other, that's how this is going to happen.
Yeah.
Because I don't think you have Kevin Owens run his mouth for so long and then have Austin just totally wipe him out. Like, I don't think that's going to happen.
And I hope, because some other guys have responded to Kevin Owens. What I hope doesn't happen is we have a Legends beat up a guy at WrestleMania, which might happen. A JBL, Booker T, I think Mick Foley, Shawn Michaels all come out and hit their finisher on someone like Kevin. I think that's going to happen at WrestleMania. I just don't think it needs to happen to Kevin Owens. I think it needs to happen to somebody else.
I think it could be a scenario where they do come out and Owens beats them all up. Then we get Austin. And then once Austin is able to get the upper hand, then we get the finishers.
Yeah.
And then we get that.
I just think it needs to be handled delicately. Like, it needs to be handled properly.
I agree.
Yeah.
I definitely agree because Owens, like you said, is not a guy to get buried.
Yeah.
But I think we could see some scenario of that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, but I personally like my idea of Rollins coming out and chasing him in the four-wheeler and all this other crazy stuff.
I think what could really happen, I think you could do that spot, but I think you could do it after the triple threat match for the Raw Tag Team Championships and have like Chad Gable and Otis be the ones to kind of do that, to get hit after they had a great match. Because honestly, I think Chad Gable could be, if he's booked the right way and the fans get behind him, because they're already kind of behind. I love Chad Gable.
This character, yes.
I think this could be the next, maybe not to the same level. I think this could be the next Daniel Bryan of the WWE coming out and being the fan favorite that the fans get behind and push him to the main event of maybe next year's WrestleMania and being the guy that they put the title on for a little bit, because this is the best work that he's doing right now. Yeah, and it's so much fun to watch.
It is. I mean, outside of his run with Jason Jordan in NXT.
Yeah.
And they had a little bit of a run on the main roster, but not nearly long enough.
Yeah. This is the best character Chad Gable we've ever had. Maybe not in ring as much, because that American Alpha tag team was something
lights
to
out.
watch back
in
the day.
They were lights out, man.
But character-wise, this is the best he's ever been.
Speaking of Monday Night Raw, I've got it on as we're recording this. We finally get a date for Veer. He is coming the night after WrestleMania.
Hang on. He's coming April 4th. There was no year.
That's true.
So he may be coming like April 4th in like 4 years.
That's true.
Which would be funny. I hope he doesn't show up. I really don't.
I know. Me too.
It's a game. More fun this way.
It's a game at this point for sure. Yeah. The other thing we definitely have to talk about on Monday Night Raw is the freaking main event.
Oh my gosh.
Between two of my all-time favorite wrestlers, AJ Styles and Seth Rollins.
Yeah.
Listen, when Seth Rollins won the Universal title from Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania, his first pay-per-view match after that was against AJ Styles.
Oh my gosh.
And I remember that is match of 2019, hands down, no questions asked. That's the best match of 2019. Could be my favorite Seth Rollins match ever. Like,
yeah,
holy cow. And for them to run that back on Raw, because these two haven't wrestled very often.
No.
And it's good that they keep them apart. I loved it. And they gave them time. Yeah. Wow.
I was blown away that we were actually getting this match on Raw.
Yep.
I thought this would be one of those types of matches that we only get on like a pay-per-view, or like a big pay-per-view too. It was so good. It had, like, to be the main event of a weekly show, it had no reason to be that good, and it was. Like, and there's no doubt that Seth Rollins and AJ Styles are two of the greatest. I'm going to say it. You can send your hate tweets to @Andy_PBWP. Two of the greatest of all time in the ring. Seth Rollins and AJ Styles.
Yep.
Not even just of this generation. Two of the greatest of all time in the ring.
Yep.
Seth Rollins is this generation. Like, I know we talked about Dolph Ziggler being this version, like this generation's Shawn Michaels. I think it's Seth Rollins. I really do, because he can honestly have a match with anybody in the ring, and it's going to be one of the best matches of the night, as long as creative doesn't get in the way. That's a caveat that needs to be put in there. He reminds us all the time. Like, I know people don't like him, or didn't like him after he won the title and after the whole him running his mouth on Twitter and all of that stuff, but he made people remember why he is so good all the time. Yep. Yes, and this is a perfect example of that. I loved it. I'm not a huge fan of the finish. I hate when matches like this end in a no contest. I understand why, and so that part, was whatever. I wish we would have got a decisive finish, because I think it would have played more into what happened afterwards, which I'm sure we'll talk about here in a little bit as well. But I get why they did it, and it made more sense heat-wise on Edge heading into WrestleMania. But the match itself was just ridiculous.
It was, and I'm okay with the finish. Here's why I'm okay with the finish, is because, number one, it plays into the Edge AJ storyline, because we hadn't seen Edge all night long. AJ cut a promo earlier in the night calling Edge out, and we hadn't seen him all night until that happened.
Yeah.
Number two, it also plays into the Edge Seth Rollins thing, where Rollins, he talked about earlier in the night how he wanted to be the one to end Edge's career. Well, Edge has now come back up and cost him an opportunity.
Yeah.
So that drives even more into that. And number three, Rollins did get pinned last week. Owens pinned him 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
So I think this is just another way for him to get screwed and lead to his tirade at the end of the night.
Yeah.
Where he just destroys everything.
Yeah.
Like, we've said it before, man. I'm going to say it again. The work Seth Rollins is doing right now is out of this world.
Yeah.
It's so good.
There's only 2 other people that I think are doing. I don't even know if it's. I think there's a handful of people that are doing this great of work. I think it's Seth. I think it's Roman. I think it's Brock, and I think it's Edge.
Yeah.
I think those 4 guys are on a different level than everybody else right now. And I think it's partly because it's like WrestleMania season.
Yep.
But all 4 of them have been on a different level. Maybe not Brock, but I think Roman, Edge, and Seth have been on a different level since maybe WrestleMania last year. Like, they've been on a different level than everybody else heading into this year's WrestleMania. It's some of the greatest, it's some of the best stuff. We talked about it, a little bit before. I think me and you talked about it a little bit before. This definitely had the Bret Hart feel of his tirade before WrestleMania 13, kind of building into that, building into this. Honestly, what I really hope happens Monday, because he said, I think his direct quote was, Monday Night Raw will not happen until I get my WrestleMania spot.
That is correct.
And so I hope that the show has to start off with him. Let him be in the ring. I hope he is calling out WWE management. I hope Adam Pearce and Sonya Deville come out and he says, no, I don't want to talk to you. I want to talk to the real guy. And they said, okay, he will respond to you by the end of the night. Main event segment, he comes out expecting it to be Vince McMahon. Cody Rhodes walks out, and there's his WrestleMania opponent. Heading into WrestleMania, there's the story itself. No story really needed. I think that would be a fun way if you want to do a double turn at WrestleMania. I think you might be able to. Maybe not. You may want to wait a little bit, but Cody coming in, being the guy to face Seth at WrestleMania. Seth, if he loses, still has a gripe with WWE management. Can kind of go that route as well if they want to. Kind of the reverse of what the Authority was in 2015, which I think would be kind of interesting to see. But yeah, I think it's going to be. I think next week is going to be something fun to watch with how they're going to introduce Cody into WWE. Because I think at this point, if it's anyone other than Cody, it's going to be a disappointment. And I don't think they're going to do that for WrestleMania,
unless it's somebody bigger than Cody. I don't know who
would that be?
I don't know what. But it would have to be a legend that everybody's like, holy crap.
And even then, it would have to be like a Rock
or Shawn.
Or a Shawn, which I don't think either one of them would wrestle a full match at WrestleMania.
I don't know.
If it's Shawn, Seth, I'm not going to complain at all. But
here's my thing. I want them to tease that it's Cody, which they have been doing.
Yeah.
I want them to actually throw something on the Tron, or I don't want Cody to walk out.
Yeah.
But even teasing it, like you're going to lose that pop at WrestleMania when that music hits.
Will you though? I don't think you will. I think it depends on the music that they play, if I'm going to be real honest.
Was just getting ready to say that.
If they play Dashing Cody Rhodes or whatever, that's one thing. If it's the Kingdom song,
yes,
that's going to get a massive pop.
Even if they show like a graphic or something, okay, cool. But if they play Kingdom at WrestleMania, like
it's going to get a massive
coming
pop.
Off.
Yep.
Yep.
And I think what they could do is like on the Jumbotron or whatever. Honestly, all you need to say is at WrestleMania, your nightmare becomes true.
Something about his nightmare.
And like nightmare is like capitalized or is in a different font or something.
Yep.
And then people like us who are hardcore fans are like, oh, we know exactly who that is. Yep. People who don't watch AEW and haven't watched AEW and stuff like that, they're like, I don't know who the nightmare is. WrestleMania, music hits, they may not know. As soon as he walks out, big pop.
Right. Whatever they do on Monday, because I'm like you, I feel like they need to do something.
Yeah.
We need to somehow know that either Rollins has a match at Mania or that he is showing up at Mania to do
something.
X. Yep. Like, as of right now, they're putting over the fact that Rollins has nothing for Mania.
Yeah.
Rollins has nothing. So we need to know that it's something. So however they decide to do it, as long as they do not spoil the theme song.
Yeah.
Unless Cody's coming out on Raw, as long as they don't spoil the theme song, I'm good with it.
I also think what they could do is maybe they just tell Seth no on Monday. Like, you're not having a WrestleMania match. Night 1 of WrestleMania, he comes out and is holding up WrestleMania. Says WrestleMania will not go on until somebody comes out here and faces me.
Right.
And then that music hits. I think that's another way of not necessarily giving away who it's going to be, but also be like having the surprise of an impromptu Seth Rollins match at WrestleMania. Then after that, Seth can say, "Well, I wasn't fully prepared because I didn't know I was facing Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania."
Right.
And then that could build into a feud later on down the line.
Right. Regardless, man, it's going to be interesting to see how they do it.
Yeah.
We are a week and change away from actually seeing how they're going to do it. Whatever they do, like, I know it's going to pay off and I know we're going to be happy. It's just a matter of, like, I don't know, just seeing it all.
Don't wait too
out.
long. Yeah.
Right.
I think that could be part of it is don't wait too long, because if we start to, I think we're already starting to fall victim to this a little bit of, we've been like, some people have just been tuning into Monday Night Raw for the last 3 weeks to see if Cody shows up to face Seth.
Yep.
And he hasn't shown up yet. And so I think that's part of it. Is like, people now, like, either show up or don't. Like, if you're not going to show up, this has been a big waste of a time. And whoever Seth faces at WrestleMania is not, like, it's not going to matter. It's not going to be good because it's not this. And so I think it may be one of those, if we waited too long to have him debut or show up. But then again, his music could hit, the crowd could freak out, and then all of that just kind of goes away. I think it just depends on how they present Cody Rhodes. If he shows up at WrestleMania or the Raw after, it depends on how they present him to WWE fans.
Right. I honestly think if he doesn't show up at Mania, that we might get a lot of Cody chants throughout Mania and people not be happy.
Yep. That might be the new CM Punk.
or the new Daniel Bryan 2014.
Which, honestly, this was the first Raw in Chicago that I've seen with the crowd since Punk returned without a single CM Punk chant.
Yep.
And that was nice.
That too.
I
noticed that too. That was very nice. All right, man. We have reached the end of this week's episode. But before we go, we always have to hand out our high spots and turd sandwiches. The highs and the lows of this week in the wrestling business. I'm going to cheat.
That's fine.
I'm going to start with my turd sandwich. And we talked about the last hour of AEW. Obviously, I could give it to that. But honestly, like, this week, I'm not going to give it to anything. And the reason is because, like, where we are, like, my biased opinion, where we are, I'm invested in everything.
Yeah.
Especially because we're going to be there. But even if we weren't, like, with it being WrestleMania, like, I'm invested. I need to see what's going to happen because of where we are. So I don't think anything is bad, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. I'm actually going to cheat too then, and I'm going to give 2 because I had 2 that really stuck out to me this week.
Good, because
so I'll take one for you. Yeah, I'll take one for you. And actually, both of them are going to come from, or one's coming from AEW, one's coming from WWE.
Okay.
I'll start with the AEW one because it's kind of one that I've talked about on this episode. The Thunder Rosa segment was the worst thing for me for AEW and partly in wrestling this week, because that's not how you should have introduced her as new champion. She deserved a lot more than that. She deserved a lot better than that. So hopefully they can rebound from that and kind of build something special heading into Double or Nothing, which is a really big pay-per-view for them.
Yep.
And then the other one is, I'm so sick and tired of the 24/7 stuff on Raw. Like, I'm so sick of it. I just want it to go away. The title needs to go away. The love feud between Tamina and Akira Tozawa and Dana Brooke and Reggie just needs to go away, because it is definitely the worst part of Monday Night Raw was that.
Yeah.
And Raw was good this week. Raw was really good this week. And that kind of drug it down a little bit for me.
I can agree with that. I certainly can agree with that. Okay. High spots. I'm going to go. I'm copping out on this one. I'm going to tell you right now, AJ Styles and Seth Rollins.
Yep.
Adam Cole and Jay Lethal, that was a great match, but you ain't touching AJ and Seth. Sorry.
No, that's mine as well. But since you gave that one, I will do Punk and Dax. I think that one was really good.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed that. I think 3 great matches a week with that one. 4 with that one, with the women's tag match on SmackDown, with Punk and Dax Hardwood, and then Adam Cole and Jay Lethal. So wrestling matches this week have been some of the best that we've seen this year, consistently on each show. And it's fun to watch.
Yeah, it absolutely is. All right. Make sure you're following us on social media at PBW Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Andy is at Andy_PBWP. I am at Chris Belcher 24. Make sure you're following along on the bodyslam.net YouTube channel. Hit that notifications bell and the subscription button so that you get a notification every time not only us, but somebody else on the bodyslam.net family drops an episode. So make sure you tune in and support them as well. Head on over, follow Tom on Twitter, SportsWire Radio. That's sportnarium.com/player. Make sure you keep it tuned in there. They've got a lot of great sports shows as well as wrestling. So make sure you support them. And if you want your podcast on a traditional audio format, Spotify, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, that's where we are. Check us out there. Again, next week, man, we are loaded up on WrestleMania episodes, fantasy book and WrestleMania watch-alongs, road trip stories, all the things. Andy, we're close, man. We can't talk about it enough. Next week is the final time we're going to hit the record button before we go to Dallas. Next week, full-on preview of WrestleMania. Man, it's getting close.
I'm looking forward to it. Normally this is like the best time of the year. This year's been a little bit of a damper because of sports reasons, because if you saw our podcast last week, you can tell why. But this is still like the best time of the year. This is like Christmas for a lot of fans. If you're a college basketball fan and a wrestling fan, this is like Christmas because basketball is great. Then you go into WrestleMania, it's awesome as well. And even though it hasn't been great the last couple of years, the Raw after Mania is one of my favorite Raws to tune in and watch because the crowd is always hot. And I feel like this year it's going to be even bigger because I think we're fully back to normal, and I think it's going to be a fun Raw to watch, and SmackDown. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. So it's going to be fun.
The last Raw after Mania with crowd, I was there. It was in New York.
Yeah.
After 35.
Yeah.
And that Raw wasn't great. I mean, we saw Lars Sullivan come back. We saw Sami Zayn come back. We saw The Undertaker surprise.
Yeah.
And we got to see Seth Rollins and Kofi Kingston in a main event that got turned into a tag match. So the best part about that Raw was afterwards when they did the Shield farewell when Ambrose and Reigns came out, and that wasn't even on TV. So I'm anxious for the Raw after. For the first live crowd, you're right. I mean, it's going to be as back to normal probably as we're going to get. We're not going to get political and speculative and all that. But, yeah, man, it's going to be great. We're going to be right in the middle of all of it. We are not going to be at the Raw after Mania. We're coming back on Monday. But for a full preview of our schedule, what we think might happen, and some surprises in between, next week we're previewing WrestleMania. We'll tell you what we're going to do, what we expect, and that kind of stuff. All right. For Mr. Andy York, my name is Chris Belcher. Thanks so much for hanging out with us this week on the PipeBomb Wrestling Podcast. We will catch you guys down the road.